All
Oh,
right,
I just had an error.
we are live. Well, you look it on this end. So while you're getting ready there, Brian, hey, I'm Kenny Keller, creator of Helicopter Land Ground School. Heather should be here with you in the chat very shortly. She's going to be talking to you, members, Helicopter Land Ground School members, or members of the general public if you just happen to be in here today. Brian is going to cover terminal aerodrome forecast with you. So, have you got your technical problem fixed there, Brian?
I think so.
Okay. Quick, Brian, before we get started with the presentation, for those that are new to Helicopter Land Ground School, maybe they've been on one of our videos for the first time, tell them who you are and what you do for Helicopter Land Ground School.
Sure. I'm Brian Rutledge. I'm the operations manager for Helicopter Online Ground School. Currently, we're going through and doing a lot of updates on a lot of the content that's in the website. And I've been putting together quite a few presentations over the course of the last 7 weeks. And we're just continuing to create more stuff for our members. And hopefully we can get more members in the more we do.
Awesome. So, real quick, before Brian gets started, I am Kenny Keller, creator of Helicopter Land Ground School. We've been online 8 years. You'll see Heather Height in the chat. Heather Height has been with us for over 2 years now. Heather is our office manager, and she takes care of new members, potential members, answering your emails, your phone calls, sends you a nice welcome email when you sign up. Heather is currently manning the Helicopter Land Ground School phone line at 574 767 1797. You can call or text that number, and Heather is monitoring that 7 days a week. So if you need to get in touch with us, you have a question, Heather is there to help with your phone calls and or text messages, and she'll relay it on to me or Brian. Brian gives a phone consultation to current members and brand new members. You want to talk with Brian for half an hour on the phone about ground training, flight training, anything you want to talk about helicopter-wise. He's been on there enjoying talking to members and really learning about our members and what their needs are. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Brian. I'm going to be here monitoring, and Brian's expecting his pool guy today. So if pool guy arrives while in the presentation, I'll jump in and we'll talk about something for a little bit. We'll take your questions, answer anything you have, and we'll just proceed on through. We'll just keep going because this is the world we live in now until we get back to normal, right? And everybody's back working where they're supposed to be working. All right, Brian, I'll be right here if you need me, but otherwise, just get your presentation going, and if you're running into trouble, I'll jump in and take over. But other than that, here I am, so go for it.
All right. Now, hopefully we can get through this entire presentation. In the time that Kenny was talking, my device is disconnected twice. So let's see how this works. All right, so we're going to talk about TAF'S. Kenny said at the very beginning, TAF'S, Terminal Aerodrome Forecast. So what exactly is a terminal aerodrome forecast? Well, it's the most detailed forecast available for pilots. Just remember, aerodrome, that just means it's the airfield. So this is a forecast of weather in and around the airport. And we'll kind of go into a little bit more detail as we go along. Now, just remember that the coding that you're going to see in a TAF is the same as in the METARs. And we did METARs, was that last week, Kenny, I believe?
Yep.
So the coding, and you'll see that here when we get going, what I'm talking about. Now, we talk about most detailed forecasts available for pilots. Well, it covers a 5 statute mile radius from the center of the runway complex. It's just from the center of the airport, dead center of the runway, out 5 statute miles for a 24-hour period. That's what the forecast is for. It's issued 4 times a day, and there's the times right there that they issue them. Now remember, it's a concise statement of weather that's expected at the airport itself and out 5 miles. So here's a TAF. Again, looks just like at the beginning of a METAR. You've got the airport identifier, KGSP. That just happens to be the Greenville-Spartanburg Airport in Greenville, South Carolina. One reason why I picked that one when I was 17 years old and started my flight training, that was the airport that we flew out of, so I thought it'd be fun to kind of use it in a presentation. The next set of numbers next to that, just like in the METAR, is the date. So the 23rd of the month at 13:30 hours Zulu time is when this report was issued. Now the valid time is the 23rd of the month at 1400 hours, and it's valid until the 24th day of the month at 1400 hours. So you've got about a 24-hour window. You will see TAFs that are a little less than that. I believe down to about 20 hours I've seen it. up to 30 hours in the future. So again, 24 hours is the average time frame. And some things that you're going to notice that are different here in the TAF compared to the METARs, after we get through this first line, and you see the winds are from 160 at 7 knots, 5 statute miles of visibility, and then RA again is rain. The minus sign means light rain. If there was no sign in front of it, it'd mean moderate rain, and if there was a plus sign, that would be heavy rain. Next to that's BR, that's mist, and then a broken cloud layer at 006, that's 600 feet, and then a broken layer at 5,000 feet. 050 is 5,000. If there was any number in place of the first 0, that's 10,000s of feet. So if the last one was broken 150, that would mean 15,000 feet. So let's get down to the really nitty gritty here. So we have tempo, we have from, FM is from, and tempo is temporary, and then we have prob 30. So we want to talk about those so people understand when you see a TAF, what does temporary, what does from, and what does probable mean. Also, if you look in the very first line where we have from FM, the 23rd day at 1500 hours, move all the way over past the 6 statute miles visibility, and you're going to see VCSH. And then directly below that, you're going to see a minus sign, an SHRA. Those two things in a TAF are extremely, extremely important. So let's find out what this TAF is trying to tell pilots. So tempo, what exactly is tempo? So the tempo, from, prob, and becoming, those are all forecast change indicator groups. Tempo, it just means conditions lasting less than an hour. So if you see tempo in a particular type of weather condition that is after that, it typically is going to be those conditions for less than an hour. So if you're planning a flight and you want to leave at 1,300 hours, and there's a tempo weather forecast that shows maybe some strong winds, well, just know that should only last an hour or less. The key is knowing what comes after that. Now, after that would be from, FM. So from, they're talking about rapid weather change that's going to occur during a particular time frame. And we'll get into those time frames. I'll show you a TAF, and we'll dissect the whole thing. And whatever the from weather forecast shows, just know that now supersedes what came before it. So whatever the weather conditions were before it, they're saying that this next line is going to be the priority, and that's why they've included it. Next is prob 30, or sometimes you'll see prob 40. That just means probability. There is a percent probability, a percentage, that there could be thunderstorms or some precipitation that's occurring. Very, very important. If you see prob 30 or prob 40, that means that the likelihood, the forecaster felt that he had at least a 30% to 40% chance of being correct that there's going to be thunderstorms, remember, within a 5 statute mile radius of the airport. Very, very important information. BECMG, becoming, that is just a gradual change that occurs in about 2 hours. Again, you're going to go on a flight. Maybe it's just a training flight and you want to go do some practice in the pattern. And you see during the time frame becoming, and there's going to be maybe some winds that you aren't comfortable with. Just know that could be coming in the next 2 hours. So do you want to go a little bit earlier in the day, or do you want to wait a couple hours and see how it's gonna pan out later in the day for you? So very important that you understand what tempo, from, prob 30 or prob 40, and what becoming means. Now, we talked earlier about this SHRA or VCSH that you will see in TAF'S. So if the forecaster does not have at least that 30% probability of thunderstorms or rain, then you're going to see SHRA or VCSH. So let's find out what each one of those means. SHRA, what is it? It's rain showers that are within this is important, within 5 statute mile radius of the airport that could be, in big red letters, thunderstorms. So he doesn't have a 30% chance to be able to say, look, I've got a really good idea that thunderstorms are coming, so I'm going to go ahead and put rain showers in there, but that is indicative of the possibility of thunderstorms actually building and occurring. They may not be during this particular time frame, but something's happening in the weather system. Typically, it's going to be an unstable air mass that's formed, And the possibility of rain showers and thunderstorms occurring are starting to get greater. Now, if things change in the middle of the forecast, you'll see another line that will say from at a certain time, thunderstorms, cumulonimbus clouds, and we'll get into that a little bit as well. VCSH, what does that mean? So the first one we talked about was within 5 statute mile radius of the airport. This one is rain showers in the vicinity of 10 statute mile radius, but not within the 5 statute mile radius that the TAF typically covers. And it could be thunderstorms. It's possible. They just don't have a 30% chance. Maybe it's a 10%, a 15%, maybe even a 29%. They don't have 30% chance yet, but there's still that possibility of thunderstorms. And it's really important. Now you think about, well, why do you want to know about 10 statute miles? Well, think about it. If you're going to go on a cross-country flight and you're going to go 20 miles to a nearby airport to go get that $100 hamburger, and you take off and you see VCSH and you don't really understand what that means, most people just say, oh, that's just showers in the vicinity. Well, that's true, showers in the vicinity, but not within 5 miles. It's 10 statute mile radius, and it could be thunderstorms. So you really need to pay attention to what that VCSH and that SHRA are really trying to tell you. Or better yet, you're going to another airport that's 100 miles away, and you look at their forecast at the TAF, and it shows VCSH. There's a possibility that when you get within 10 miles of the airport, that you might run into some pretty good showers and potentially thunderstorm activity. So very important that you want to know what these two terms mean. So showery precipitation, we all should be aware of this, except people that are brand new or just getting into this. You may not be too up to date on these things, but showery precipitation is indicative of convective activity. When we talk about stable atmosphere or stable air versus unstable air always typically has showery precipitation. Stable air will have what's called continuous precipitation. Two different things, not convective. Showery precipitation is indicative of convective activity, and that should get your attention. And again, if the probability goes up in the forecaster's mind when he's doing his forecasting or her forecasting, if the probability goes up for thunderstorms, then the forecaster will then put in something that indicates actual thunderstorms. And you'll see the minus sign TSRA. Well, the R, you got to kind of read it backwards. RA is rain, and the minus sign means light rain, and then the TS is thunderstorms. The next set is thunderstorms and rain. Remember, if we don't have the minus sign, that's going to be moderate rain, so that should get your attention. And then the CB is cumulonimbus. So you could see a string of those, TSRA and then cumulonimbus clouds, all in one line. If you see that, either at your airport where you're leaving during the time or the airport where you're going to arrive at during the time you're supposed to arrive, don't go. Stay on the ground, either wait it out, go another day, but don't go, because that you're probably going to run into some thunderstorm activity. Now let's go through the TAF line by line. So here's that beginning part that we talked about, Greenville, Spartanburg Airport. We've got the times, we've got the issue time, and we've got the two valid times from the 23rd at 1400 to the 24th at 1400. And we see our winds, our visibility, little light rain, some mist, and a broken cloud layer at 600 and broken at 5,000. Now, remember, these cloud layers, these are issued in what's called AGL, above ground level. They are not MSL. When a pilot puts out what's called a PIREP, a pilot report, and we are going to do another presentation on PIREPs later on, but a PIREP is what the pilot sees on the altimeter. So if they are flying and give a cloud report of 1,500 feet broken, that means 1,500 feet MSL, because that's what they read off of their altimeter. When you're talking about TAF'S and talking about METARs, that is AGL, above ground level. So this first one, tempo, there's our first change group that we were talking about. So remember, the tempo is a temporary condition lasting less than an hour. And if you look at the timestamp, 23rd day at 1400 hours to the 23rd day at 1500 hours. There's that hour time frame. They're expecting 2 statute miles of visibility, moderate rain, because there's no symbol in front of the R, and mist. That's some conditions you might want to consider. Let's not go anywhere, because 2 statute miles of visibility, not good. whether it's the airport you're departing from or the airport you're going to. Now, again, that's just an hour time frame, so you have to wait it out for an hour. No big deal. From, our first from group. So remember, the from is just a rapid weather change, and it's going to supersede the previous temporary condition that you see. So from the 23rd day at 1500 hours, winds are expected now to be 160 degrees. That means that's the direction it's coming from, at 13 knots, gusting to 19 knots. That's a pretty good clip of wind. 6 statute miles of visibility, and there's our first VCSH. So we have showers in the vicinity, outwards a 10 statute mile radius, potentially thunderstorms with mist and an overcast layer at 1,200 feet. Here's our first indication that this day, this 24-hour period, has already gotten worse from the first line. So now we're seeing the possible rain showers, which could be thunderstorm activity. Let's look at the next one. From 4 hours later now, the 23rd day at 1900 hours. The winds are still pretty good, 150 degrees at 10 knots, gusting to 17. 5 miles visibility. Our visibility has now gone down a mile. And we have light rain and showers, again, within 5 statute mile radius of the airport. That could be thunderstorms. So we have outwards 10 statute mile radius. We've got rain showers that could be thunderstorms. Within the 5 statute mile radius, we've got light rain and showers that could be thunderstorms. And we've got mist and an overcast layer of 700. So now the ceilings have gone down. It was overcast 1,200, and now they've gone down to 700. So the weather is actually getting worse. Let's look at the next one. Then the forecaster put in a prob 30. So now, instead of just rain showers in the vicinity or showers within that 5 statute miles, now the forecaster has determined that he has at least a 30% probability that between the hours, the 23rd date at 2300 hours and the 24th date at 0300 hours, he's given you a 4-hour window now, 4-hour window, that visibility is forecast to be back down to 2 statute miles, rain, moderate rain at that, thunderstorms, mist, overcast clouds at 500 feet, and those clouds are cumulonimbus. So you start at the top of the TAF, you work your way down, and you can see that the day is not progressing very well for the Greenville-Spartanburg Airport. So as pilots, those are things that we really need to be able to decipher these TAF'S to make good go, no-go decisions. Now, military TAF'S. A lot of people look over these military TAF'S, and here in California, in Northern California, there's 2 air bases, 2 Air Force bases within 20 miles of my home airport. We use these military TAF'S all the time. They do have some different coding than what a civilian TAF would look like. And here's a TAF that I've pulled up for the nearby Travis Air Force Base. So the airport identifier is SUU. That's Travis Air Force Base. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to look at the differences between this military TAF and the TAF we previously looked at. So this TAF here, it starts out the same, airport identifier. The date that this was issued was on the 12th date at 1100 Zulu, and it is valid from the 12th date at 1100 Zulu to the 13th day at 1700 Zulu. So now we have, what is that, about 30-hour TAF. We talked about that. Usually 24 hours, but they can be up to 30 hours. Pretty good clip of wind. Winds coming from 240 degrees at 15 knots, gusting to 25 knots. Now, what is this 9999? And what is this QNH 2985 INS? So, in military TAF'S, if the visibility is greater than 7 statute miles, they will code it as 9999. They're using meters. So, you'll see 8,000 in a line. That just means that's 8,000 meters is the visibility. So yes, you do need to be able to convert, but just know that 9,000 meters is 7 statute miles. So anything less than that is less than 7. So you start getting down to 5,000, 4,000 meters, you can pretty much deduce that you're getting down to like 3 or 4 miles of visibility. Now, obviously we want to go in and we want to decode, do the conversion from meters to statute miles so that we really know what they're saying. But that is what it is. It's in meters. QNH, that just means that it is the minimum forecast altimeter setting for that time frame. So they're saying the minimum altimeter setting in inches is 29.85. Pretty good to know as a pilot. That what are the military people forecasting in their area, especially if you're going to fly through an area where there's a military base, or you have a military base in your home area like I do. So let's look at this next line. So we've got becoming. Remember, that's a gradual change that's going to occur in about 2 hours. Similar to a civilian TAF, it's got the dates and time stamps that it's valid. We've got the winds, pretty good winds still, gusting to 35. And there we go, visibility, 8,000 meters. So if you're reading the military TAF, just know that's less than 7 statute miles, so visibility is going down. Coding is still the same next to that for light rain showers, and then a broken cloud layer at 3,000 feet. But what we want to know is what's this 520003, and you will see this in all kinds of military TAFs. This is different than what we talked about. For those of you that have watched the METAR one, this is different than the string of numbers that starts with a 5 in a METAR. In the METARs, remember, that's talking about pressure changes. And so we don't want to confuse those. So what's the 5? The 5 stands for turbulence. This is pretty good to know as a civilian pilot if you're going to be flying through an area near one of these bases. They are forecasting turbulence, and the 2 is its intensity, and they're saying moderate turbulence. Then you have the next 3 numbers. So ours just happened to be 000. That just means that is the base limit of the turbulence, and since there's no numbers, it's all zeros, that's from the surface. So we know we have pretty good turbulence from the surface up to the next number is your depth in thousands of feet. So from the surface to 3,000 feet, this military TAF is saying they are expecting moderate turbulence. And again, that TAF is within a 5 statute mile radius of the airport. Next one, we've got another becoming line. We'll skip all the way over to the 620205 because everything before that is the same as what we just talked about. So what is the 6 and string of numbers after it? So 5 is turbulence, 6 is icing. Pretty good to know. And the 2, again, is its intensity. This happens to be light rime icing is the forecast. The 020 is going to be the base layer of this particular forecast for icing. So since the 2 is in the middle, that's going to be 2,000 feet. And then the 5 is how deep in thousands of feet is it? So it goes from 2,000 feet and it add 5,000 feet, so up to 7,000 feet. So between 2,000 feet and 7,000 feet, they're expecting light rime icing. Helicopters can fly above 2,000 feet. So if you use this as a gauge in an area, even if it's within 50 miles, because forecasters are not able to pinpoint exactly where icing is going to occur. And that's another presentation that we're going to do later is all about icing. So the only way they know icing is occurring is when pilots actually report it, which is in the PIREP. And that's the other one we'll talk about. We kind of hinted to that earlier. So again, the string of numbers starting with the 5 is turbulence. The string of numbers starting with the 6 is icing. Both of them are very, very good. And I think we have a doorbell ringing. So, Kenny, if you could give me just a couple seconds and we'll move on after that.
Absolutely, Brian. I'll take over and just chit-chat with everybody here while you go do what you got to do. So we pre-warned you, Brian's pool guy might show up. So there you go. So let me mention while we're going here, one thing with Brian's presentation that he showed you already, and that's very important, is the to, becoming, and from. I know that I have an examiner that I've used now for 20 years, talk about him all the time, very well-respected examiner and very fair examiner. But there are some things that he won't, let you get by with, and he said they have to know to, becoming, and from. If you show up for the private pilot Checkride and you don't understand to, becoming, and from, then that is going to be a failure. So Brian, are you there?
I am. We
Awesome.
might hear a little bit of commotion in the background, maybe,
That's
but
okay.
we're getting close to being done. So I think we'll go ahead and just pick back up where I left off if you're ready for me to continue.
Yeah, I just want to tell you what I recommended to everybody. In the 20 years I've been using this one examiner, and on a private pilot check ride, if you do not understand to, becoming, or from, that is a failure on a private pilot check ride. So
Absolutely, it is.
I just confirmed that with him there's one area that even though he's a super fair examiner, you got to read a TAF, you got to read a METAR, and he's flat out said, when your people show up, make sure they understand to, becoming, and from, because if they don't know those, I'm sending them home, and it's a failure. So
Absolutely.
that's all I iterated there while you were at the door. So I'll let you go ahead and finish up.
Absolutely. Perfect. Yeah, no, that's great. And actually, if I was an examiner, I would even add in, outside of the METARs, the TAF'S, you better know what PIREPs are. And you don't have to know the entire order or how to give them, but you need to know things about weather for sure. And the big thing is don't limit yourself to just the METARs and the TAF'S and the PIREPs and call it good. You need to arm yourself with as much information as you can on these flights. Use as many tools as possible, because that is how you can really say, I know I'm making a good go or no go decision. So use as many tools as you can when briefing the weather in order to make that good decision making process. Here's something that a lot of people, they should know about this. Some people do not. However, we used to have what was called Flight Watch, and you would be able to pull up on the radio and you'd be able to get in-flight weather. They discontinued that back in 2015. That was a great resource for pilots, but they took it away. And then in 2020, actually January of 2020, HIWAS, HIWAS, HIWAS. If you are a pilot, you should know what HIWAS is. You were able to get hazardous weather information over select VORs. January 2020, they started discontinuing the HIWAS over select VORs that they're decommissioning. So that's going away. And the reason they're doing that is because flight service stations are still available. You can call a flight service station, use the frequency in the little frequency box. Again, that'll be another presentation later, how to actually contact flight service stations in the air. But you can always pick up the phone and you can call them. So there's lots of tools out there, and they have found that pilots weren't using the information, so they started shutting them off, especially with VORs. Everything's going to GPS, so they were decommissioning more and more of these VORs, which had HIWAS, so they had to get rid of the HIWAS. Aviationweather.gov. This is a great resource. If you're not using it, if you've never looked at it, I encourage you to go look at it. It gets better and better every year that I use it. There is so much that is involved in aviationweather.gov. Again, another presentation will be coming on that. This one is really, really important, and I think you'll be very surprised at information you can glean from aviationweather.gov. Never hesitate to call flight service station weather briefer to have any questions explained. If you're a self briefer, you're doing all your own self briefings, but man, you're just stuck on something. Absolutely, 100 WX brief. Call the number, follow the online or the audio prompts, and talk to a weather briefer. If they go too fast, tell them, I don't understand this stuff. I'm brand new. Slow down, please. Please explain it to you. And they will. They'll be more than happy to explain it to you. VFR flight following, great resource for pilots. I don't understand why a lot of pilots don't use it, other than those pilots that live in areas where they continually are flying at low levels. Maybe it's in their work that they do, and ATC services just aren't available. But if ATC services are available, absolutely use them. ATC can tell you where precipitation is and its intensity with relationship to your route of flight. They can't tell you what it is. They can't tell you if it's snow, if it's rain, if it's hail. They can't tell you the cloud layers, again, unless a pilot gives them a pilot report. That's the only way they're going to know. But here's something as an example. And this is what you would hear from ATC if you were up on flight following and you were flying a particular direction and you changed radio frequencies and you came up on there and you requested flight following. If this was occurring in the route of flight that you were headed, this is what they would tell you. November 123 Hotel Golf, extreme precipitation between 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock. So that's your track, the direction your aircraft is tracking. They're telling you from 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock position that they're in, it's 20 miles, 20 miles away from you. Precipitation area is 25 miles, 25 miles in diameter. Extreme precipitation, 25 miles in diameter, within 20 miles of where you're currently at, and you're tracking right for it. You might want to know that. And this is, you won't get that information if you're not talking to ATC. So I really strongly encourage people to use Flight Following. It's a great resource. ATC in-flight weather avoidance assistance. This is covered in the AIM, chapter 7-1-14. I encourage you to go to that chapter after you're done with this video and read up on it. And in AIM 7-1-30 is where you can find the key to TAF'S for additional review. So all, tempo, becoming, you want to review that, you watch the video again, but go to your resources, use all your resources, go to the AIM, it's there. And for those of you that may have a Checkride, you can even say, I know this because it's in AIM 7-1-30 and impress your examiner. So that is all I have, Kenny. That is the end of the show. So I will turn it back over to you.
Okay. Great presentation. All I want to add is that is a follow-up to METARs that's new inside ground school that we put in there last week. This is a follow-up. First was METARs. Today's was TAF'S. And as I already mentioned, I'm going to mention it one more time. Let's recap. You have to understand a TAF and a METAR to be a safe and prudent pilot. You have to understand to read a TAF and METAR to go to a private pilot check ride, and every check ride thereafter. Pilots, we know, are losing their lives, continually flying into bad weather. So how do you keep yourself out of bad weather? Understanding TAFs and METARs. So people comment on this, and I know I even had a past student who would always complain and say, well, I just read the raw. Or not, I'm not the raw, I'll just read the translated. Well, that doesn't work for a check ride, okay? Right. An examiner for any check ride, from private pilot all the way through your CFI, or your out in the world and you're getting a 135 check ride from a check airman because you're flying EMS, you don't get to study METARs and pass your tests and forget about them. Brian went through these with you and just gave you a really good presentation to help break it down. And it's stuff that you have to know. And he added some extras in there for you, but that's what I have to add on that. So this will
let me add real quick, Kenny. Let me add this. So you're talking about the person who said they just want to read the decoded version is right. What we'll call it, the decoded version, right? If that person still doesn't understand that showers in the vicinity means within a 10 statute mile radius there could be thunderstorm, unstable air, they don't understand that key element, or that within 5 statute miles the light rain showers could also be indicative of convective activity. That doesn't matter if you decode it or read it coded. If you don't understand that part of it, you're really not giving yourself a very good weather briefing. And here's the other thing people forget about, and it's something I didn't put in the slide, I was just going to add when we were chatting, is when you start talking about TAFs, there's not a TAF at every single airport. There's about, when I was first researching this, about 660, 670 TAF sites, but there's thousands of airports. So that's something to remember. You may have a TAF at your departure airport, and the direction you're going, you may not have another TAF for 40, 50 miles. What's the weather doing in between those two airports? And if you don't know how to read a prog chart, if you don't know how to read a TAF, if you don't know how to read a METAR, you really don't have a good understanding of the weather and what fronts are doing, and how high pressure and low pressure is working. So you need to know all this stuff. You got to be you don't have to be a weatherman, but you better understand the weather. That's for sure.
Awesome. Okay. Well, that concludes that one. So before I let Brian go, if you have any questions, type them in now and we'll cover them before we go. And I only see one question in there. I see Heather said hello to everybody. CW Fox said, does Kenny keep a list of his YouTube videos in the Hogs library if we ever want to go back and find one to watch? I'm not sure I really understand the question, but let me reiterate what we've talked about in the past. We do YouTube videos are to get on and entertain people and get together and talk and chit chat and occasionally teach new subjects. And a lot of times we take those and we edit them and then we put them inside ground school. Ground school is private pilot, commercial pilot, instrument pilot, certified flight instructor, okay? And that's where you have all of the videos in sequence to the appropriate rating in order. So YouTube is not something we're using to teach people, the general public. YouTube is it's a free resource, and we go on here and do these things. So I'm not sure I understand the question, but no, we're not intermixing YouTube and hogs. YouTube was to get on, watch some stuff, teach you some things now and then, answer questions, talk to people live like we are right now. But I guess, I don't know if you're gone, CW, but I'm still not really sure on that question. But that's kind of the deal. And somebody also recently said, well, hey, what's the difference? Well, the difference is YouTube is, right now we're doing every Tuesday at 2. Getting on just to do something and let you know what's happening, let you know that we're still here. So any of you that are still hanging around, if you're on YouTube, we are Helicopter Land Ground School. We have 4 courses. Heather that you see in the chat, for those of you who don't know, Heather is our office manager. She has the phone line at 574-767-1797. You can call or text that number. You can also reach her at heather@helicopterground.com. You can reach Brian at brian@helicopterground.com. And you can reach me at kenny@helicopterground.com. I see Heather just said, just on YouTube under Coffee with Kenny. Okay, she's answering that comment. All right, cool. Hey, give us a thumbs up today. If you're new to the YouTube channel, subscribe and click the bell for fresh content that comes out each week. We're doing the Tuesdays at 2, and then through the week, sometimes I'll throw out a video because I got something I want to talk about. I do videos where I answer questions like from members or the general public, something that doesn't need to be, something that doesn't need to be in Helicopter Land Ground School. General questions that the public has that don't need to be in the actual training process. So YouTube, we use this also for answer questions from people when they ask questions about learning to fly. Awesome. All right. Well, nice presentation, Brian. Again, everybody, make sure you subscribe. And when you subscribe, remember, click the bell. And then that way you will be notified of when we have new videos. So we'll see you all in the next video. Cool. Peace out.